Drinking Coca-Cola to the point of causing a nationwide riot in the Philippines is something only they could achieve. PepsiCo managed to plunge the Philippines into a nationwide turmoil with just one bottle cap, resulting in at least 5 deaths, up to 39 PepsiCo trucks being burned, and their headquarters being besieged. This nationwide riot in the Philippines stemmed from what could be described as the most foolish blunder in advertising history by PepsiCo. In 1992, PepsiCo launched a grand promotional campaign in the Philippines to boost its market share. The promotion involved a prize giveaway with every bottle cap, each containing a random 3-digit number between 1 and 999. Every day, the winning numbers were broadcasted on television, and the grand prize was to be announced 2 months later, a cash prize of 1 million pesos, equivalent to 40,000 USD. At that time, the average annual income in the Philippines was only about $10 United States dollars, and 40,000 USD was enough to turn a poor man into a small fortune. This sparked a nationwide craze in the Philippines for purchasing PepsiCo products, with some people even spending their life savings to buy as much as they could. Even monks joined the buying frenzy. Statistics show that out of the 60 million population in the Philippines, more than 30 million participated in this event. PepsiCo's market share skyrocketed from the original 4% to 25%, earning them a fortune. Soon, an unforgettable farce quietly unfolded. On May 25th, the grand prize was to be announced. Countless people held their bottle caps while waiting in front of their televisions. When the number 349 was announced, countless families cheered and rushed to the streets to celebrate wildly. But soon, they realized something was wrong. How could there be so many ecstatic winners everywhere? The next day, when PepsiCo executives saw the massive crowd of people coming to claim their prize, they could hardly believe their eyes. There were supposed to be only 2 winning caps with the number 349. So why were there so many claimants? It turned out that there had been a printing error in the production line, and 800 caps with the number 349 had been printed, meaning 800,000 people had won the grand prize. Seeing the overwhelming crowd, if PepsiCo were to pay out, it would require 32 billion United States dollars in cash, an amount they couldn't afford even if they sold everything. The executives quickly ordered the company's stores to be shut and forbade any prize redemption. This sudden shift from the joy of becoming millionaires to extreme anger enraged the crowd. But PepsiCo's public relations department performed a puzzling move by publishing a notice in the newspapers, claiming that 349 was just a mistaken number and that the real winning number was 134. This explanation, treating people like fools, only added fuel to the fire and completely infuriated the Filipino people. The crowd formed a protest army, marching to blockade PepsiCo's factories and office buildings, protesting the company's broken promises and throwing stones inside while fighting with security personnel. Seeing the situation spiraling out of control, PepsiCo executives finally decided to spend 8.7 million United States dollars to compensate these winners, offering each of them 18 United States dollars. However, this compensation was only promised to 480 people. This decision led to a complete escalation of the riots. The original prize of 40,000 USD plummeted to just 18 USD, and even worse, only half of the people would receive it, making the Filipino people feel deceived and humiliated. The riots spread nationwide, and since firearms were not banned in the Philippines, extremists began buying homemade bombs to attack PepsiCo factories. At least 37 PepsiCo trucks were bombed and burned, and 3 employees were killed. In one attack in Manila, armed rioters threw a Molotov cocktail at PepsiCo's office building, but it unfortunately landed on a passerby, killing a teacher and a 5-year-old girl on the spot. The Philippine police took great efforts to quell the riots. However, the winners didn't give up. A man named Delfiro Jr. saw a business opportunity. He went around persuading people to form the 3 for 9 alliance, organizing everyone to use the legal system to reclaim their prizes. Thanks to his active promotion, at least 15,000 people joined, with an annual membership fee ranging from 14 to 80 United States dollars to cover the alliance's basic operations. Delfiro Jr. promised everyone that he would use legal means to bring down this multinational giant. After much preparation, he set off for PepsiCo's global headquarters in New York, demanding that PepsiCo pay them for $100 million United States dollars in actual damages and an additional $10 million United States dollars for emotional distress. As expected, the New York court dismissed the case, stating that the incident occurred in the Philippines and that it was not within their jurisdiction, nor could a third party represent all the winners. Similar alliances sprang up across the Philippines, with many people selling their cows and sheep to pay the membership fees. PepsiCo, on the other hand, considered these alliances the real fraudsters, accusing them of luring poor people with an impossible goal. Meanwhile, thousands of lawsuits were filed against PepsiCo by Filipino citizens, but most were lost. The Philippine government took 16 years to finally stabilize this chaotic situation. In 2006, the Supreme Court of the Philippines issued a final ruling. PepsiCo had no obligation or responsibility to honor the 349 prize, and no further cases of this kind would be accepted. Although PepsiCo won the lawsuit, their reputation in the Philippines plummeted, essentially losing the Philippine market. In the eyes of Filipinos, the number 349 became synonymous with fraud, and PepsiCo paid at least $20 million United States dollars for this marketing blunder and legal fees. Despite this, PepsiCo didn't learn its lesson. 4 years later, in 1995, in an attempt to win the cola war in the United States, PepsiCo launched another disastrous advertising campaign in marketing history, the Drink Cola for Points prize redemption promotion. They claimed that as long as you could accumulate 7 million points within a year, you could redeem a Harrier fighter jet, and 7 million points equaled more than 16 million cans of cola. This meant that an average family would need to drink 200 cans of cola every day, and they would need to drink continuously for 100 years to meet the requirement. Anyone would think that this was impossible. But as luck would have it, a 21-year-old college student named John from Seattle, USA, took it seriously. The moment he saw the advertisement, he was deeply attracted to the fighter jet that could launch missiles and hover in the air. Flying a fighter jet to school would be incredibly cool. He immediately began calculating. At that time, a Harrier fighter jet cost about $32 million, and it would only cost him $4 million to accumulate all the points. This was a huge profit. Surprisingly, John's family was very supportive of his naive decision, so the whole family mobilized and began frantically buying Pepsi. After calming down, John realized that even if he spent all his money, he couldn't afford that much cola. He needed to find a venture capitalist to invest in the plan, so John found his friend, 40-year-old Old Dow, to invest in such a crazy plan. Old Dow initially thought John must be insane. But when John showed him the advertisement, Old Dow also became interested. He watched it over 100 times. The ad had no disclaimers and no other terms, which meant the advertisement wasn't fake. Old Dow was even more excited than John. He immediately asked John to write a business plan to verify the feasibility of this plan, like a true adult convincing him to invest. Having never written a business plan before, John took a few days to list all the expenses, including labor costs, transportation costs, storage costs, etc. All expenses added up to $4.3 million, and they needed to buy more than 16 million cans of cola. Just the storage warehouse alone required 6 large ones. Old Dow, being a businessman, quickly pointed out the flaws in the plan. The first was whether an ordinary person could legally own a fighter jet. John called the Pentagon to inquire and learned that as long as the jet was disarmed, it was legal. The second issue was how to recoup the costs after owning the fighter jet. John said it could be used as a sightseeing plane. The third and most fatal problem was what if Pepsi canceled the promotion halfway through their plan? Obviously, this problem had no solution, which left John utterly disheartened. But the fighter jet was deeply imprinted in John's mind. By chance, he went to a convenience store to buy Pepsi again and saw a points redemption brochure. It clearly stated that points could be purchased. Each point cost 10 cents, and there was no limit. John quickly calculated, and the $4.3 million cost instantly dropped to $700,000. All the problems were solved at that moment. He immediately contacted Old Dow. On the other end of the phone, Old Dow was thrilled. Their dream was revived. This time, they were determined to get that plane. Old Dow said that the check he was writing was like a thumb pressed hard into Pepsi's eye. They got the points redemption booklet, but there was no option for the Harrier fighter jet. They specifically wrote it in with a pen and added $10 for Pepsi to ship the jet to their home. After mailing the check to Pepsi's headquarters, they began to wait for the result, but Pepsi was in an uproar. Pepsi executives thought John's actions were too absurd. To them, this kid was trying to extort them. They even considered keeping the $700 and only sending them a model of the Harrier jet. After a long wait of 6 months, John finally received a response from Pepsi. The letter stated that it was all a joke, and to apologize. They offered 2 boxes of Pepsi coupons. John angrily tore up the coupons. In Pepsi's view, John was just a small fry, and they were confident that even if they defaulted, John wouldn't do anything. But what Pepsi didn't know was that behind John was Old Dow, who had planned to spend $4.3 million after seeing the ad. But in the face of an international giant, Old Dow was still just a big fry. After learning of Pepsi's response, Old Dow called in his legal team to discuss countermeasures. That's right. These 2 big fries actually challenged the giant Pepsi. Both sides began sending each other warning letters through their lawyers. Unexpectedly, Pepsi struck first, suing John in court, claiming that the prize itself was illegal. The lawsuit was filed in New York, where Pepsi's headquarters were located, a venue most favorable to Pepsi. Since they had started the fight, John countersued Pepsi in court. The bizarre situation arose where both sides were both plaintiffs and defendants. On the surface, Pepsi was very tough, but secretly, they were guilty. They changed the points promotion in the second version of the ad to 700 million points and added small print stating that it was just a joke. To save on legal fees, Pepsi approached John for a settlement. At the negotiating table, Pepsi executives wrote out a $1 million check and handed it to John. Would he choose the fighter jet or the $1 million? Old Dow left the choice to John. After all, $1 million was nothing to Old Dow, but it was enough to change John's life. No matter what John decided, Old Dow would support him, but John insisted on the fighter jet. The jet was his dream. Seeing John's choice, the Pepsi executives couldn't stop laughing, which completely enraged Pepsi. They began fighting in court, and John and Old Dow hired a well-known lawyer, Mike. After analysis, Mike believed they had a very low chance of winning. So he decided to use public opinion to overwhelm the giant company. Sure enough, controversial news naturally attracted the media's attention. John's story of redeeming points for a fighter jet was reported by media outlets across the United States. On a show where he confronted Pepsi executives, a Pepsi spokesperson said that any reasonable person would know it was a joke when they saw the ad. John just happened to exploit a loophole in the rules and was extorting Pepsi. There was a similar case before, where an 81-year-old woman received $0.9 million in compensation from McDonald's because the coffee was too hot. So the public opinion did not overwhelmingly support John. Many people called him an opportunist, which John couldn't understand. How had he become a blackmailer in such a clear set of rules? Throughout history, those who challenge giants only realize their insignificance when they stand before the giant. Pepsi merely made a phone call, and all of John's programs were taken down. Even the Pentagon spokesperson, when asked about the matter, said that the Harrier jet had not been disarmed and would not be sold, directly denying the legality of the prize. Mike suggested continuing to increase the attack in public opinion, as it was their only chance of winning. So Mike spent hundreds of hours searching for Pepsi's marketing scandals. Sure enough, they found that Pepsi had a similar marketing campaign in Mexico, but the difference was that the ad there had a disclaimer. This showed that Pepsi was well aware of the consequences of airing the ad. As they continued to dig deeper, they discovered that Pepsi's marketing scandals in the Philippines were even more severe. In John's view, Pepsi was a habitual cheater in marketing. To gain more public support, they created some highly aggressive posters and planned to place them on the building opposite Pepsi's headquarters. This required a budget of tens of thousands of dollars. At this point, Old Dow believed that this behavior constituted brand extortion, which had completely deviated from the original intent. Moreover, he had other businesses to manage, so he withdrew from the matter entirely. But John had no choice but to go all the way. However, he was facing Pepsi's insurance company, advertising agency, and professional legal team. This lawsuit finally came to a conclusion after 3 years of back and forth. The judge ruled that, no matter how one looked at it, John was on the side of truth. But reality was cruel. John lost miserably and received no compensation. The judge's reasons were also very sufficient. First, the school did not have open space to provide parking for students' fighter jets. Second, a rational person with higher education would not consider it a real prize. And third, flying a fighter jet in a residential area was extremely dangerous. More importantly, there were no relevant legal provisions. Even if John appealed, the result would be the same. After losing the case, John gradually returned to a peaceful life. This story became a classic case in contract law, although Pepsi won on the surface. The two marketing scandals severely damaged Pepsi's reputation. People believed Pepsi had no integrity at all. So, do you prefer drinking Pepsi or Coca-Cola? If you were John, would you choose $1 million or the fighter jet? Feel free to leave a comment below and discuss. See you in the next episode.